when it comes to divorce, as parents, what is the best way to protect your children through it? Jeremy was saying earlier in the programme that his parents split up when he was young and it really did take its toll on him. The number's 0207 862 2222. Do give us a ring and we'll speak to you very shortly. Comedian Sacha Cohen and Isla Fisher's divorce is reportedly turning toxic. The former couple first said they continue to be based in the UK for the sake of their children's education. They said they'd buy 2 neighbouring houses close to the kids' school and they'd continue to share parenting duties. But I don't think it's quite worked out that way for them, which is really something of a shame. So we're going to be talking about this, about divorce and the impact on children. Jeremy, for you, how old were you?
3 when my dad left, yeah.
And do you remember it? You were only 3?
I don't remember it because I was a bit too young, but I took it hard. It was acrimonious. My father went off with someone else, it's no secret. And yeah, it was really difficult. It was very difficult for my mum with the 2 boys. My mum's a very proud woman and she didn't want any help from my dad, and so therefore she was bringing us up on her own. She's a teacher, music teacher, so that was hard. And yeah, I'm just gonna, it sounds a bit dramatic, but it's true, possibly because I became an elective mute. An elective mute.
Yes, I know. Well, my daughter Saskia is a child therapist and she has to work with elective, or sometimes they're called selective mutes.
Is it selective? Sorry.
Yeah, often. And it is a way that children do somehow
because I just couldn't
respond.
I just shut down. And ironically, I do remember having moments of that. I was just sitting in when I got older. It was just something I just became to do at like tiny school.
Did you do it at home or at school
at home,
or both?
At school, home. Everything at home,
Wow.
at school. I just remember sitting, just really just shut down.
Do you imagine that what was going on in your little brain was that there was nothing you could say that wouldn't somehow upset somebody, so you better not say anything?
Possibly. I just remember, I think I just was in shock. In utter shock.
Yeah.
And, you know, and then unfortunately nothing really worked out. You know, I remember they never spent any time in the same room together at a birthday party. They never, ever, in my opinion, and put us first. Simple as that. My mum is a phenomenal human being.
Yeah.
And she looked after us, did a great job with me and my brother. But the 2 of them,
They just couldn't resolve it enough even to put a front on for you two. And you think it would have meant a lot if they had done that?
To the point where, Vanessa, when I got married, so we're talking,
years
15
later.
years, I was nervous about them being in the room together.
Were they in the room together?
They were, and everything was perfectly civil and fine. But it was still a bit cold. And you know what, it really upset me massively. I mean, because, for the grace of God, I'll go on. But, if I was ever in that situation, for me, it would all be about the children. I don't care, my dad may have done wrong, but I think my mum also did wrong by not I don't ask him to forgive him, but I just think, come on, drop the anger. You can't be angry. You shouldn't be angry for that long. Move on, because there's 2 little boys. I got to see my dad, but back then it was very, you got every other weekend. And it was like a short day and a half. That's it. That's not enough to see your father.
And that's the thing of all these dads and all these children looking absolutely disconsolate at the Wimpy or McDonald's or the zoo, isn't it?
It was us, Wimpy. Exactly that. Yeah, and treats the cinema. It's not real life because it's just treats. So, and that didn't. So you really, therefore, didn't grow up with any kind of father figure, which of course played a massive part in me becoming an adult.
I mean, it's devastating.
It can be.
But it's also very difficult because I negotiated a divorce with my 2 little girls. They were 10 and 13. And it's incredibly hard because your heart's broken, you're devastated,
I understand that,
you're hurt, you're angry, you're betrayed. You feel you can't trust the person. It's just very difficult.
True, Vanessa, but I have to say, there was no love that you feel greater than for your children.
You're right.
And therefore, like Ryan Reynolds said this brilliant thing when he met his wife, he said, oh my gosh, I'd walk over hot coals, I'd do this for you. When the children come, I would push you in front of a bus to save them. And it's kind of true because, I felt no love, nowhere near as powerful as I do for my children.
Yes.
Ergo, I would, even if my wife, God forbid, did something heinous to me, I would be, well, I'm sorry you did that, but I'm going to, at least for the sake of the children.
You can see the passion. This is of a grown-up man, a father of 2, and this happened when he was 3 years old, but look at the lasting legacy of the whole thing on him. So we're going to be talking to parenting expert Sue Atkins about how to protect your children through a divorce straight after this. If you're going right through it now, you'd like some advice, or maybe you've been through it and you do have some advice to share, do please get in touch. This is a big deal. We really, isn't it? We can't really say that with more emphasis than that. 0207 862 2222 is the number, and we'll speak to you straight after this. But first, I want your calls on how to protect your children when you're going through a divorce. The number 0207 862 2222. We'll speak to you shortly. But Sue, you can see with Jeremy, and this is not in the least bit unusual, that although he was only 3 then, he's a grown-up now. It's 50 years ago we're talking about.
Yeah.
50 years ago, half a century ago. The effect on him is still profound, isn't it?
I remember working with a client, and it was 50 years ago that she was told as a 7-year-old, and she could describe exactly what shoes she was wearing, what cardigan, and where she was when her parents didn't know how to kind of tell her. But it was devastating, and she was still carrying some of that 50 years later. So it's very difficult, and you've got to get that bit right, actually, how you say it, when you say it, and, you know, plan it a little bit before you tell the children.
Right, so let's try to steer people through this incredibly difficult time of life, because there's very often somebody who's heartbroken, somebody who's betrayed, somebody who doesn't know how they're gonna where they're gonna live, somebody who doesn't know how they're gonna make ends meet, somebody who thought they were in love forever and they're not, and they're, you know, and it's not the best time to be your most grown-up self, even though you love your children with all your heart. It's hard.
Oh, it's really difficult, and that's where it's a good idea to perhaps, you know, go and sort that out, not in front of the children. It's difficult, but it's important you get it right if you can. And what tends to happen is, because of guilt, sometimes you give in to, you know, too many devices or too much chocolate or junk food or whatever, because you're not quite on top of your game. And it's good to get support for yourself so that you are in a better place, so that you can then try and guide your children. But don't be their friend, because it's not appropriate sometimes when they're 12 and they may look mature and you offload about their dad or their mum onto them. That's not their job to take that.
I definitely did that, and I'm
can't.
very, very sorry, and I have apologised to my children, because they're 2 girls, 10 and 13, you know, very, very mature, extremely delightful and lovely people, and also, well, you know, as Jeremy was saying, you know, when you're sort of in the public eye, you don't really want to confide in strangers, you don't want to really tell very many friends, and you find you sort of cleaving in, and you end up telling your children too much. Also, I remember thinking, I don't always want to leave the room to take a phone call, because I don't want to leave them on their own all the time. They're so fragile now, although I should have done.
Well, hindsight is a wonderful thing, so you have to forgive yourself for the mistakes. And no one's gone through it before, necessarily, and no one knows how to go through it. So that's where I come in, trying to guide people on it. It's not therapy, it's not counselling, it is actually saying, well, here you are now, it's a safe space to offload it. Often you go and join the pity party with a bottle of wine, don't you, to your friends, but your children don't need to see some of that you need to hold some space for them too, and be in a better place, because they're going through it. I talk about, and I've spoken to you before, about the 7 stages I think people go through. Some people are in denial, some people are in incandescent anger. I went through a divorce and I was incandescently angry at some points, but then you come through that and then you come to acceptance, and then it's a whole thing, and everyone's going through it. Your mother-in-law or ex is going through some of that. That wasn't, and it's the death of dreams, isn't it? That's the other thing when you go
feel you've lost your past because it wasn't what you thought it was, and you've lost your future. And then you know, I certainly felt absolutely heartbroken on behalf of my children.
Can I ask you a question,
yeah.
Vanessa? Sorry, darling, a bit personal.
It's all right.
But you know, you said you regretted saying bad things about the ex.
No, I did not. It wasn't that I said bad things.
Okay.
I just maybe spoke to the solicitors in front of them. You know, wasn't saying bad things. I didn't bad mouth, but I just said too much. I definitely said it was too open. But also it was in the public eye. That was the other thing. One of my daughters was on the coach going to school, and Chris Tarrant was talking about our divorce.
Gosh.
You know, that kind of thing. It's incredibly hard to shield children from something that's public. You know, the whole thing was... Anyway, let's take some calls, because we are inundated with calls. Let's talk to Joanne. Hello, Joanne. So you said you had a really awful divorce. I'm so sorry.
Yes, I did. Obviously, you're talking about what's best for your kids.
Yeah.
My ex-husband, it took me 5 years to get divorced. He was a prison officer, so I could get some CSA.
Right.
He left his job the minute the divorce was granted. He went off with his pregnant girlfriend. He left his job and paid absolutely nothing towards my children. Didn't send them a Christmas card. Didn't send them a bit. Yeah, he just wanted to obviously wipe their life out.
Yeah.
However, it did take me to court to try and get some money out of the house that we lived in.
Oh my gosh. All right. So, Sue, in this instance, this is a father who is basically taking himself completely out of the picture, isn't paying, not only isn't paying, but isn't seeing them, isn't sending them birthday cards. Now, in this case, what's Joanne meant to do? She can hardly keep on saying he was a wonderful fellow, can she?
No, but don't necessarily then badmouth him, because I think also don't forget he is their father and they will have their own opinions of him. Certainly when they're young, you want to keep that relationship. It's always better to try and have a relationship with your ex, and then as they get older they tend to make up their own mind about their father, don't they? And if they want a relationship with him, then perhaps they can forge it themselves. But if you keep the equilibrium, if you keep dignity and respect, that's not easy, but that's very important for the well-being of your own children, I think.
All right, Joanne, thank you so much for that. Let's talk to Heather. Heather, you feel regret really that your ex-husband didn't see more of your children?
Regret and angry, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
My husband walked out after 20 years. We found out at my mother's funeral that he was having multiple affairs.
Oh dear.
And he turned round and said he wanted nothing to do with the children. Oh. And I took him to court in Scotland 3 times to see the children. There was 3 children involved. He wanted to see the first one when he turned, he didn't want to see any of the children until they turned 18. And he only wanted the first one. He wasn't interested in seeing the other 2. But the children kind of blamed me for keep taking him to court to force him to see the children, which he didn't want to see the children. So, yeah, just as they've got older, they blame me for that.
Oh, it doesn't seem very fair. And so did they ever get to see him? Did they ever form a relationship with him?
The first one did. The second one, he didn't want anything to do with them because he had a learning difficulty, and he was ashamed that.
I mean, these stories are so sad. Heather, thank you for calling. I mean, I don't even know what you say to Heather after all these years and on all this pain and suffering.
And what do you say to someone who doesn't want to see their children? You can't make them, because actually that's not how the relationship should be. And also, there are some great parents out there that do get co-parenting right too, to be quite honest with you. And it's not easy, but it's very important. And seeing your children and being involved with them is sometimes easier almost, because you can text or you can WhatsApp or Zoom them now, whereas sometimes, you didn't see them and they moved away. It's very painful all round, isn't it? But I just also want to talk about the positive sides of some of that too, that you can do it well and you can do it so your children have some sort of relationship with you. I mean, it tends to be, if I'm really honest, mums do eat the broccoli, do the homework, brush your teeth, and this sounds terrible, but dads do the old, we stayed up really late gaming and it was great and we ate popcorn and had a McDonald's. But over time, you do find your equilibrium and the children do kind of make their own relationship with the person.
It's interesting because we're
painful.
We're making generalisations about men and women. We've so far
which
had,
is naughty
Jeremy's dad left. We've had calls from women whose husbands left. But wait till you hear this call, because this is Janet. And Janet, it was your mother who left, not your dad.
Right.
Yes, that's right. That's correct. Nice to speak to you, Vanessa.
Nice to talk to you too. And you were just 11 years old when it happened. I bet you can recall it very vividly even now.
Yes, I went to school, and then when I come home, my mother had gone with no explanation. And my youngest sister was 4, and I've got 4 siblings, and she just went and left without anything. We did actually go to live with her eventually, because my 2 older sisters went to college. But what I want to say is, when something like that happens in your childhood, it's your later life. Yeah. The trust issues. My husband, I got a wonderful husband. And when we first were together, when he went to work, I was afraid he was never coming back.
Yeah. Yes.
And that's horrible. And he'd never do anything to me.
But and my younger sister, she's the same. She feels the same.
And I'm not at all surprised,
Well,
Sue. Neither are you. When Jeremy's not surprised either. Because
it's abandonment, isn't it?
If your mother walks out on you, how are you ever going to trust anyone again?
Yes, and yet we don't know the circumstances, if she had some mental health or whatever the circumstance. But what it does to the children, that is, they don't understand it and they can't make sense of it, and it can live with you forever. And as it has, I hope it hasn't damaged your relationship with your husband now, but it has left a trauma on you.
Right. Well, thanks everybody for these calls. I know you're holding a book there. Is that something that you? Is that
that's my divorce journal for kids.
Yeah,
to support children through the divorce. I was a deputy head and class teacher, as you know, for many years, and there was about 4 children going through divorce when I was teaching them. They were 8 years old, and I just kept thinking, there's nothing for them. This little girl turned to me and said, I don't know, no one's listening to me, Mrs. Atkins. And I thought, this is to help you feel heard and process the divorce for yourself. Because we all go through all those strong emotions, and children need a bit of support. You can either do it on their own, or they can do it with their parents.
Jeremy's going to have a look at that now, and let's go to our beautiful competition.